when you hear confidence, what immediately comes to mind? It can be describe if it's an illustration, if it's a word. What do you think of?
I think of confidence as very synonymous with courage, because I think a lot of people think confidence is to like have this fearlessness, and that can come across as powerful, and I do think it's powerful, but I think confidence is in acknowledging that your fears and doing it anyway. So you do it scared, right? And we've had this conversation before. I really think that confidence is saying I'm going to be okay regardless of what happens, right? Regardless of what other factors are at play. I can't control that. I can influence them maybe to a degree, right? But I think confidence is in knowing yourself and having so much self awareness that you're like, whatever may come my way, I'm going to make it to the other side. I'm going to be okay. And really feeling so affirmed in that you have the courage to do things scared.
Yes. We talked about that on the podcast. We were on your podcast. We were
Yeah.
saying like it's not about not and on the phone before we got on the air, we talked about this
Yeah.
too, that like 'cause we were talking about our journeys a bit and like you don't do it because it's easy. Like do it whether it's like
No.
the move to a new city or applying to position. It's because you're scared shitless and you're like, well, in spite of that, like I believe in myself and we're just gonna go for it.
Yeah, and I think as you do those things, right, the things that really are scaring you shitless, so to speak, like those are the stepping stones, right? And it's a call to level up. I think it's like unlocking a new character of yourself where I'm terrified to launch this podcast. And it's for that reason that I must do it to
Uh-huh.
further develop my confidence. I'm terrified to release this bullet journal. And therefore I must do it to level up in my own confidence, right? And I like what you said before of it's kind of like a ripple effect. I very much think it's a snowball, right? I I've said this before, but I think the most magnetic part about anyone is when they are authentically themselves. Because whether you are the super bubbly, warm, kind hearted person, or whether maybe you're a little bit more reserved, maybe you have a harder exterior, if you're being authentically yourself, someone is going to see themselves in you. And
Mhm.
that makes you magnetic, right? And I think the confidence to be authentically yourself in a world where you're sold so many competing narratives about what people desire from you and what roles really demand from you, that I think is very powerful. That is magnetic, is that confidence to be authentically yourself, and kind of tying in a little bit of like having faith and having trust that the right people will continue to be drawn to your orbit.
Yes. Wow. Let's just let that simmer. That was deep. That was a lot. Yes, I actually heard a bit of this yesterday morning from Heinz. Do you know Heinz on the podcast Hindsight?
I don't.
I'm gonna send you his stuff. I think you would really like. He has a really nice voice. He always has tea. But he said
Oh, I
literally
love
that
it.
he was just like the biggest flex is when you are confident in your authenticity in a world
Yeah,
where there's pressure to live a particular life, live a particular image. Like for you to step outside of that takes so much damn courage because it really
absolutely.
demonstrates like you don't care if people like it or if you don't, or if they don't.
Yeah.
And on that note, I want to ask you what your thoughts are on this. I often get advice about confidence, and people say the key to confidence is to not care what people think. What do you think of this?
Mm, yes, and right? I think at its core, you should not be shaping your life or the narrative that you tell yourself around others. With that being said, as someone who very much views my mission as a community builder, being able to build community is important, right? Understanding how I come across, how I'm being perceived is important. And it's inventory and it's data, not so that I change who I am at my core, but understanding for my work what is and isn't being received in the way that I want it to be. Because I think it's about not caring if it's received well, but more so if it's received in the manner that serves you, in the manner that serves your mission and furthers kind of what you're pushing for.
Mm.
So going back to that idea of like, no one can write the narrative of Xianna for me, but it's important for me to know how the readers are understanding the narrative of Xianna.
What are you specifically doing to build your confidence? What drives you to feel like more courageous every day to be your authentic self?
That's a really interesting question. I think there's some tangible, like automatic kind of things that I'm actively doing that come to mind. Um, Being like, I'm on Bumble Friends and I'm on dating apps. And like, I've always said this before. I think when, as someone who's heterosexual, when a girl gives me a compliment, it always feels so much nicer because in my mind, like it's not coming from a place of sexualization or like wanting something. So when I get a match on like Bumble Friends, I'm like, oh my God. But then I had to create that profile. And I was like, wow, like what, how do I present myself as like the best friend possible, so to speak? Um, and that was a really, I don't know if it was scary so much as it was just uncharted waters, right? It was new for sure. And I really was like, how am I going to come across? And then I just had to own that, like, I am who I am, and the right people will read my profile and be like, yes. And it's worked out great so far. And I've actually met someone from the app, and she's lovely, and we like hang out all the time now. So I think like having that confidence, right, to create the profile, and both of us met and we're like, dude, I've never done this before. Like, but we went to brunch and we're there for 3 hours, and then we like had a taco night, and now that's just like one of my girls, right? And it's really lovely. So I think about putting myself out there in that way, um, as a way to like build confidence in the sense that like people are matching with me, right? It is, I think there are external factors that build confidence because it was the payoff from me putting myself out there. So it wasn't necessarily like, oh, all of these people needed to validate me. It was, I had enough confidence to create the profile in a way that I felt like reflected my authentic self. And that's resonating with people.
Uh,
And that is now adding to the jar of confidence, but I had to level up on my own, so to speak, right? I had to take that step to unlock that character. And then I'm reaping the rewards or the benefits of finding what I was looking for. Um, so again, right, being authentic, kind of being this magnetic orb that people will gravitate to. So I loved that. I also think in general, the things that like more abstractly motivate me to be confident are, I think it's a combination of like my upbringing and the things that I value, right? So like I am a very faith-based person and I say that all the time. And I think about kind of the power of unseen identities and how you see me and you can see short, well, y'all can't see it now, but I'm tiny. So you would see just like this short woman, right? Curly hair, rubia, like maybe you think I'm Latina, maybe you don't. Um, but there's so much more to me than that. And it's kind of like a magician with a trick up their sleeve where I'm like, I am this kind of like wonder of wells that
ooh,
you'll never know unless you talk to me.
love
And that confidence of like, I know something you don't know about myself, and this like value as someone who really values stories in others. And like, that's why I have my podcast. And that's why I love the bullet journal. Because it's a place for you to create your own narrative, right? As you say. And so, very much thinking that like I have that power every day with everyone I interact with.
Mm,
That's alluring, that's magnetic, that it just feels good to know that like I know myself best. And in any way that that manifests, it will be received by the people I intend it to be.
woo, girl, you just spoke so much power in all those words. I feel that wow, like the power in knowing who you are. When
Yeah.
somebody chooses to judge you, you can maintain your confidence because you're like you said, I know something you don't know. You're just like kind of
Mm-hmm.
like so sad for you to judge me based on what you're seeing because little do you know, like I could be your best friend. I could be like the love of your life.
Mm-hmm.
I could like, you know what I mean? And I'm being very silly about it, but it's so real.
Yeah, exactly. I think about, there's this saying in the like Latinx, Latine community, calladita te ves más bonita, right? The quieter you are, the prettier you are. And it's only said to women. And it's so, ugh, I hate it. But I never heard that growing up. That was never something that I was told. So when I heard it in like high school from one of my friends, I was shocked. I was like, what did you just say?
Wow.
No.
Yeah, because they're kind
Like,
of like, you need to quiet down. Like, you look pretty.
yeah.
Do that. Don't do too much.
Hmm. It was very much like putting women in their place. I hate it. I hate every part about it. But it also made me so grateful that like my family was very much like, no, we're loud and close knit and rambunctious. And like that is our power, is that we're loud and close knit and rambunctious. And so I've had a lot of people, men and women, throughout my life in different varieties, peers, superiors, etc., kind of be like, you're a lot. And when I was younger, I didn't know how to feel about it. I think I just kind of objectively was like, okay, this is something people say about me. In like middle and high school, I started to get a little conscious about it where I was like, am I too much?
Mm.
And then in college, I remember someone telling me like, you're a lot. And I was like, you're right. And there was no response because it's a fact. And I think I get to control what power I give that. Even if they say it, maybe not meaning the best thing, they're like, dude, you're a lot. Be like, thank you, I know. Now they're thrown off, right? Because I've owned it and I've taken that power of like, I am a lot and that's lovely. And there's so much more that you don't even know I am.
Um,
To your first question about like, what do I think of when I think of confidence? I think if I had to put it in a phrase, I would say confidence is walking in your worth. Like you just navigate the world, you walk in your worth, you walk in your power. And by doing that, you you're channeling that power, right? You're saying, I am powerful and that is okay. You're exuding that inner confidence of like, maybe my confidence is that I'm quiet and that I don't feel the need to take up space in the room. Maybe my confidence is that I will take up space and invite others in, right? That idea that like I'm the person who can call people in. That is also confidence and understanding that it's so multifaceted. It does not look the same for any two people, and so walking in your worth, I think, is the ultimate confidence.
I love that. Wow. Wow. I want to add on one last question actually, because it made me think of
Yeah.
that made me think of confidence in your skill, right? So we've been kind of talking about confidence in kind of the way we're showing up, but
Mm-hmm.
there are people who even myself, I'll use myself as an example. Like I think generally overall I'm a confident person, but I do
Mm-hmm.
feel insecure about my inability to do certain tasks at work, right? Or my lack of knowledge about certain topics. So when I'm called into a meeting, I'm like, I don't feel so confident in those moments, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so what's something you would advise anyone who might have the same experience as we're emerging into, the professional world, going into jobs we've never done before? How can you be in a space where you might be unfamiliar with, specifically when it comes to like skill, let's say, or knowledge, you're unfamiliar with the task at hand. How do you be a confident learner, a confident student?
I think you have to trust in your ability to get things done. So I may not know how to complete this task right now, but I know who to go to.
Mm.
When left to my own devices, I can and will figure it out. And I think also part of being confidence, part of being confident is owning the fact that you will never know everything,
Mm.
right? There's that old saying, the wisest man in the room is the one who knows he knows nothing.
Mm.
I want to say it's maybe Buddhist, but I'm not sure. Um, but I think about that and like asking for help demonstrates confidence because so many people would rather struggle in silence than simply admit that they don't know and
Mm.
admit that they need the help. And I think to that ripple effect, you having the confidence to ask for help builds someone else's confidence because they know how to do it. And
Wow.
now they can help you. And so you've leveled up because your confidence is manifesting as vulnerability, and they're leveling up because they're getting that validation, right? Like I was saying, the matches on Bumble. I had to level up, but then once I started matching with these friends, it was like people co-signing that they saw this leveled up character. Now
Wow.
you're doing that with a coworker or a peer or etc.
I love that. You building your confidence helps your friends build theirs, especially if you call it a
Mhm.
friend. Hey, I know you're really good at this. Can you help me? There's
Yeah.
so much in there. Wow, that's dope. I absolutely love that. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. That was a really strong note to end on.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah, yeah.